Kelp?
Yeah, so I just recently got a copy of Kelp. It's a Kickstarter. It's been running for a little while. Only just came out a month ago, I believe. It is a 2-player asymmetry game where both players are either the shark or the octopus. And there's some very simple objectives for how they get to win. But it's 2-player only. We're competing against each other and this little kelp forest. And you essentially have one of either two roles. So you're either the shark, and you're a very hungry shark, and you're trying to find this elusive octopus. Now, the shark doesn't get a lot of information, but they can move around quite quickly. And essentially what you're going to have is a small board in front of you with these 9 tiles. And you, on your side of the board, as the octopus, can see what is on those tiles. And one of them is the octopus. Whereas I have to find you and then come and eat you for lunch or dinner or whatever meal you would prefer.
So it's a bit of a hidden movement sort of game sort of thing.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So it's a bit of like a cat and mouse kind of chase game. You have all the information and all the power, whereas I'm quite fast and sleek. And I will come and try and find you as you try and evade your way around. As the octopus, you have 2 ways to win. You can outlast me. If I've searched and tried to find you too many times and I can't get there, then you will win. But you also have your own little sea floor cavern snacks like snails and crabs and that sort of thing. And if you can eat those along the way, you could get your own victory a bit quicker. But every time you do that, it kind of reveals your position to me. So it's a bit of a risk-reward kind of game.
That sounds pretty cool. Like, who do you think the target audience is for this type of game?
Ironically, I think it's sort of myself, like couples sort of thing. Like, it's a type of game that you need. I felt like you needed a lot of plays. As you played the game more and more, there's this sort of bluffing element that was going on. And I played 2 games as the shark to start off with. First game's a bit of a learning game. Second game, I was like, I really get the shark now. I understand what's going on. And my partner felt the same for the octopus. And then we switched sides, and all of a sudden, 33 games in, the whole game feels completely different now. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that you were doing this. And like, I just thought that was happening naturally, but you were actually making those decisions. I've now played 5 games, and I'm still learning. The game's still evolving. A lot of replayability. We haven't played any expansions yet. This is just the base game. And yeah, so I think anyone who's going to play with the same person repeatedly over time probably enjoy this type of game.
So you mentioned it's a hidden movement game, and I've played a couple hidden movement games before, but like, what is the movement mechanic? How do you move around? Do you just say, okay, like, is there a limited, you can only move one space in a particular direction, or is there like you roll some dice and then you move? How does the actual movement part work?
So what's cool about it is that answer is different for both players.
Gotcha.
For the shark, you're sort of playing a probability game. So I will have a bag of dice that I will pull out from my little pool, and my bag of dice will evolve over the game. They'll get stronger and more powerful, and I'll get more abilities to mitigate any bad rolls and things like that. And essentially the game is you imagine like a tic-tac-toe grid. There is 9 squares. The shark will move on the lines of the tic-tac-toe board, and I will move around there and around the edge.
Okay.
Whereas the octopus is playing a deck building game on their side.
Right.
And they will move where you place the noughts and crosses. So they're on the areas in between the lines. So I'm sort of going to be moving in and out and around there, whereas they're going to be moving between the different areas. It's a little bit different for the octopus. As I said, they're going to have deck building. So they would have something like reveal a tile, but then you can switch to hidden tiles. So I won't know where the octopus has moved to.
Right, or even if you actually moved an octopus.
Did you move the octopus at all, or was it a double bluff, right?
Right, okay.
And that kind of keeps evolving as the game goes on.
By the sounds of this, like, it's very pretty. It reminds me, just off the premise of hidden movement, and it kind of reminds me of Fugitive, the card game.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
that's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
And it's also like with the asymmetric factions, it reminds me a bit of Root. And it's just, there's a lot going on here for such a small game.
Yeah, that was why I asked about the movement, because the dice threw me off. Because I was like, we're just looking at some images on BGG as well, and Ralph is entirely right. Like, the game looks absolutely beautiful.
It is an absolutely stunning, beautiful game.
Yeah, the artwork just looks incredible. But it was the cards that the row of cards, and knowing it's a hidden movement game, it immediately reminded me of Fugitive.
Yeah, okay.
But the reason why I wanted to ask about the movement was because I saw the dice on there, and it's like, okay, that looks like a really, really interesting change. This sounds really cool. I like I like hidden movement games, and most hidden movement games are asymmetric by nature.
With a bit of bluffing.
With a bit of bluffing, of course, yeah. But this sounds like it really leans into the asymmetry, because, you know, you've got one playing a dice game and the other one's playing basically a deck building game. That sounds really cool. That
So
definitely sounds cool.
with that, was it difficult to learn?
No.
No.
Quite
Okay.
simple. Some really good player aids. It's a high quality production. So not only was the board and the pieces and everything quite easy to tell apart iconography wise and all that sort of thing, both players given their own player aid with the main steps that you need. The back of the player book has a slightly more in-depth player aid. It was very, very straightforward, kind of like we read the rule book as we started playing within about 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty
good.
good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in 2-player games, so how long does it sit in that 25 to 30-minute range? Are we talking longer?
So I would say anywhere between 15 to 60 minutes.
Okay.
And the reason is how the game works is eventually the shark will find the octopus. That's the goal. And then it becomes this sort of rock, paper, scissors mechanic to end the game. You have 3 different ways that you can get away from me once I
Right.
find you.
Right.
And I have 3 matching ways to counter that. So
I.e. a tic-tac-toe grid. You get
Yeah.
it, guys? 3 matching ways. Do we all get it? Good, great. Right, sorry about that. I just had to throw that in
you're
there.
right, you're right.
Right.
Send Kelp.
And it's interesting because it's almost push your luck, but it's not. So
Right,
there's only
okay.
so many times I can search for you.
Right.
And if I want to go for you really, really early in the game, it's going to cost me later if I don't succeed.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Or I could play a bit more methodical, wait until I know you're definitely there, and then get that sort of scissors, paper, rock match at the end.
Okay.
And it continues on. So the first time you have 3 evasive cards, and I have 3 blocks for that. If I
Yep.
happen to pick the matching card, I'll win. If I don't, we remove those cards, and now it's only a 50-50 chance that I'll get it next time.
Right.
And then the third time I find you, you can't escape.
Yeah, so I'm already more inclined to play that. So I typically am not the biggest fan of hidden movement games, only because I was burnt by Fury of Dracula.
Yeah.
It was still the longest. I'm not going to say it's the most boring game I've ever played, but it was very long.
It was close to the most boring game, is what he wants
just
to say.
it's just basically the few games I've played of it, and I kept getting told, no, it's a really great game. You got to get into it. It's like I was into it 45 minutes ago when the game should have ended. Like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And whereas, so knowing that there's a really good quality hidden movement game, especially when it's pretty as that, and I keep coming back to that, but it's really appealing.
Yeah, I think you got my interest in it.
Yeah, that has that shorter gameplay span, because it immediately, for me anyway, and look, this is a big part of our podcast, is that we look for those games because it opens up the audience, because it increases the age span that you can introduce these sort of games to. That immediately means it's a game that I could put in front of my 12-year-old daughter, for instance, and I know she'd be keen to play.
Not just that, that's a
so,
whole
yeah.
like genre of board games, hidden movement, and there's so many great ones out
There
there.
are, yeah, there are.
And this one doesn't seem like the most introductory one. Like it feels like there's easier ones
I would
out there.
definitely say if you haven't played a lot of board games before, it might not be your first one. I would
Yeah.
possibly, if for people who are into board games,
Yeah.
you probably like this a little bit better.
But I will say, of the couple others that I have played, like Mind Management is probably my favorite one. But that is not one I'd put in front of kids. It's just, again, that has a lot of rules overhead because it has multiple asymmetric rolls.
My favorite one is Fugitive, as we have mentioned. I like that, but that can also be a bit obtuse in the first initial, like learning how the card play works versus, like understanding. Oh, what does it mean if what do you mean if I do
Yeah.
that? But I agree. It looks great. It looks fantastic. It sounds like it fits in that nice light to mid-weight sort of game, which is good. Like it doesn't overstay its welcome. So
It feels really good if you're like, you've played a couple of the really entry-level games and you want something that's a bit more interesting, but you don't want to go straight to Scythe or something.
And I will also say is that as far as hidden movement games go, it sounds like it fits if you have 2 people or a small group of people that want to play a hidden movement game, but it'll sit better than a game like Spyfall, for instance, where Spyfall you need a larger group to really get the value out of it.
I've got such
Yeah,
a
I
funny
think,
story about Spyfall.
I'd really enjoy because I saw it has a little octopus miniature as well. I could see myself taking it out of the box and then just placing it randomly around the house on certain days.
Ironically, the octopus is one of the tiles. Because it was a Kickstarter, people really wanted an octopus miniature, but it actually isn't needed in the game at all. But they wanted it so badly that they backed just so that they could get it. and they made it there's a little coin that you get in the game, and it's like a little coin hoarder placement sort of thing. So it actually is ornamental as well.
I like to imagine that the game dev/publisher was like, fine, you want it? We'll give it to you. There you go. Have the damn octopus. All right. What? You just raised an extra $30,000? Oh, okay, fine. You can have the octopus. We love you guys.
We'll give you 2 octopuses.
It absolutely smashed its goal, by the way. I think they, off the top of my head, don't quote me, but maybe 30 to 50 grand was the pledge, and it was like 1.2 mil.
Wow.
Oh, that's good.
So kelp is just a type of algae. Like, is that in the game at all? Like,
It's heavy on the theming of the game. It's this
Okay.
lovely green underwater kelp forest.
Right.
And as I said, this sort of circular grid. The corners are like this rocky underwater area. Then there's like slight seaweed, and then the middle is like a bare ocean floor. Definitely really heavy on the theme. You feel like you're kind of in the ocean.
yeah, you're trading water.
Yeah. It does feel like it could just as easily be like a bee theme, like it's a flower garden. A bee is traveling along. It's the same sort of thing, but
The art looks awesome. Like,
yeah, exactly right.
Like Scythe started with the art, and then they built the game off that.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, that's a good. All right. Anyway, so that was Kelp, a very good 2-player asymmetric game. Make sure you go out and check that because it was now fulfilling. So you should be able to get it on your should get it at the stores. Oh no.
And it's worth saying that Kelp was designed by Carl Robinson and published by Wonderbrow Games.
There you go. Fantastic. All right.